Hello, I'm Dr. Wilbur Hitt, and I'd like to talk to you today on behalf of the Florida Perinatal Quality Collaborative regarding standard definitions of labor. When taking care of patients, it is important that we optimize communication amongst the team. Speaking the same language is a foundation for optimizing communication. First, labor is defined as uterine contractions resulting in cervical change. This change can be dilation or effacement. Labor is divided into two phases. The latent phase precedes the active phase. The active phase generally starts when the cervix is 6 centimeters dilated. Augmentation is the stimulation of uterine contractions following the onset of labor or contractions following spontaneous rupture of membranes. It is important to separate this from induction of labor, which is the initiation of labor by any method prior to the onset of contractions. This next slide deals with failed induction and labor arrest disorders. To correctly define a failed induction, there must be an absence of regular contractions and cervical change after at least 24 hours of oxytocin with artificial rupture membranes, if feasible. Induced labor is slower than spontaneous labor. To give a patient the best opportunity for a vaginal delivery, we must be patient. Labor arrest disorders are divided into first stage arrest and second stage arrest. To meet the criteria for a first stage arrest, the patient must have a cervical dilation of 6 centimeters or greater with ruptured membranes and no cervical change in 4 hours of adequate contractions, or 6 hours if contractions have been inadequate. Second stage arrest criteria depend on whether there is the presence or absence of epidural anesthesia and the parity of the patient. Nulliparous patients may require more time in the second stage than multiparous patients. Multiparous patients should be allowed 2 hours in the second stage before defining a labor arrest disorders. If they have epidural analgesia, another hour is added. For nulliparous patients, another hour is added under both circumstances. This next slide is of some data from 2010 by Dr. Zhang. In their study regarding the nulliparous patients, represented by the blue and red lines on the right-hand slide, third and fourth from the top, most of the induced patients who ended up getting a cesarean section were less than 6 centimeters dilated at the time of their cesarean section. These patients were not in active labor. They were denied an opportunity to complete their latent phase of labor. Undoubtedly, many of these patients might have proceeded on to a vaginal delivery.